Hello, everyone. Hello, audience. So, today is one another podcast. So, just an intro about the Sell Like Her podcast before I introduce our special guest today. Sell Like Her podcast is dedicated to inspire and empower women to pursue an excellent sales career by filling the gender gap to live to the fullest of her potential and to achieve financial independence. I will be interviewing amazing, successful women sales leaders and CEOs from India and around the globe, where we discuss their sales journeys, their challenges, their wins, and much more. So, today I would like to introduce a special guest. She's Wesleyne and she has 12 plus years experience in sales and leadership. She's a founder and CEO of Transform Sales. She's the podcast host for The Transform Sales, where she interviews amazing CEOs and sales leaders. She's a lead sales coach. Having managed multi-million dollars team, she marries her love for sales and her passion for coaching at Transform Sales. Through her process, she empowers coaches and transforms sales managers into super sales leaders. Wesleyne has a strong track record for driving revenue through sales, marketing, and ongoing customer support. So we are going to learn a lot about sales leadership and about her podcast, about her transform sales, how she transformed from job to business. Also, specifically about chemist, because we never covered chemist industry, how women in sales are doing. We are going to discuss in detail. So, welcome, Westland. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience.
Okay, so tell us about your sales journey, how it's all started for you.
So, as you mentioned in the intro, I am a recovering chemist. And so I started my career as a chemist working in labs. And I was literally the person who did what I call failure analysis. So it was a part would come in and it would be like, oh my goodness, this is broken. Why is this broken? We're losing millions of dollars. Figure it out. And so I was always the person asking the question, why? Why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Like, how does this play into the world? And I found myself stepping into a sales career specifically focused on actually selling back into the kind of companies that I worked in. And I tell people when I got into sales, I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up because I loved everything about sales and selling and negotiating and talking to people. It was just me in my special place.
Okay, it's kind of your inborn skills that made you to become in sales, right? Saleswoman.
Absolutely. My friends who have known me from childhood, they're like, yeah, we always knew that this was something that you would do because you were always convincing us and going when we would go places. I was always like negotiating. Well, okay, so I understand this, but why can't we get this? Or I know you want to do this, but why can't we do that? So I've always had that innate sales aptitude, and I was really able to marry that technical background that I had was something that I inherently love to do.
Yeah, but what do you think about chemist industry in sales women? Like what part they do now or when you started? Like, do you see any progress?
So when I went to my first international sales meeting as a brand new sales person, sales engineer, whatever we want to call them, I looked around the room and I was one of only 5 women. And this was an international
Oh my.
meeting. This was not a meeting in the US. This was an international sales meeting. And I was the only person of color. So when I got in there, I was like, I thought it was going to be different in sales. I thought that, the fact that I came from a very technical background, it was very male dominated. All of the engineers and PhDs are all men. And when I moved into the sales world, it was still the same. And unfortunately, I still see the same things in these technical sales roles in chemical sales and petrochemical sales. In any complex, heavy sale, it is still very male dominated. And one of the reasons is because organizations tend to think that you have to hire a subject matter expert in order to sell this thing. Right. So, okay, let's say I'm selling some kind of plastic. I need a plastic engineer. Who is a plastic engineer? Typically it's a man. And so the bias still hasn't been broken. They still haven't been able to unlock and really tap into getting more women in technical sales roles.
But like, why, according to you, why do you think it's like plastic engineer means it is men, not women? What must be the reason?
So one of the big things is there's a lack of women in STEM fields, right? So like even now when I go to elementary schools, because I start early now. So when I go to elementary schools and I'm volunteering for career day, I am talking to, the class about what you can do as a chemist, how you can move and you can sell things and own your own business. And a lot of times the girls are like, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. I like to write. I like to color. And that's absolutely okay. However, we are doing a disservice to the next generation of sales leaders, of women in STEM, women in these technical areas, by not helping these young girls to understand that you can do that and this. Because my son, he loves math and science. He's like, I don't like to read. I'm like, yeah, I know you don't like to read, but you have to read in order to do your math and science. And so coming across the aisle, you don't like to do math, but in order to know how to do this or that, you have to learn it. And so it really is starting early, where we're not impressing upon the next generation of women that you can do these jobs where there are not a lot of you don't see a lot of people like you, and be successful.
Okay, but do you have any stats or some ratio? Like I know in US 35% is the women in sales ratio, but in India it might be below 5% according to me. So, chemist industry, like, do you have how much will be the ratio of women in sales?
Oh, so women in sales in technical areas. So I'll say women in STEM areas, just in general, the number of women that are doing technical jobs, I would say the ratio is probably somewhere hovering around that 20 to 25%. So that's just technical. So that's engineers, chemists, anything technical sales. And the number of women in technical sales would be in single digits. We're probably at around 5 to 6%. Again, because most companies are still looking for that. I call them the competitors' rejects. So they're going to the competitor and they're taking their salespeople, and they're not thinking outside the box and really thinking about, okay, what can I do to get somebody who is brand new out of college, or maybe I can get a woman engineer and tell her, hey, why don't you come think about sales?
Okay. I think that's something need to be, focused upon, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. More women in sales, more women in B2B sales, and more women in technical, complex, high ticket B2B sales, right? So it's a building block of us
Yeah.
getting there.
And after high ticket, it's more and more women in sales leadership and more women in CEOs, right?
Absolutely. Because that is one of my passions, right? Like, how do we get more women in sales leadership? We have to get more women in sales. And then we have to make sure that we're supporting them once they get into these positions. Because so often and so many times, a woman will come in and she'll be excited and she'll do her job. And then she's like, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to go to another company. And what happens with the constant jumping around is you never get a chance to be promoted. So how do we ensure that the women that in our organization are staying and they want to
Uh,
be promoted, right? They don't just want to come for a few years and leave.
yeah. Since we're talking about sales leadership, do you see any special skills which women are having in leadership compared to men? Do you have such?
Yes, one of the big ones is the ability to listen. Women are really good listeners. One of the things I love to tell women that are getting into sales or into sales leadership, that thing that made your previous boss or the previous career you had that people always said was so annoying, or you got dinged on it in your performance review, that's what's going to make you excellent in leadership. Right. So if you were that kind of person who just sat back and listened, and after you listened, you were quiet, and your boss always like, why don't you speak up? Why don't you talk? Why don't you this? Why don't you that? And then but you're able to share these fantastic ideas. That makes you a really good people developer, because you can listen to your the people who are working for you. You can listen to their challenges, you can listen to their problems, and you're able to give them good solutions. And also, women have this innate ability to take one big thing that they hear and connect the dots down the chain.
Mm.
And so that high level strategic thinking, that high level visionary that most women have, that's what makes them good in leadership. And the thing is, these skills, a lot of people are like, oh, those are soft skills, those are warm and fuzzies, but they actually drive revenue, because your number one job as a leader is to develop your people and to be the voice for them when they don't have a voice at the table. And so when you are able to develop each and every person as an individual, and you are able to really help them tap into that potential, that's when you start seeing change. That's when you have a team where every single person is hitting quota every single month. And that's really what we want to drive.
Yeah, so I think that's makes sense, like being a leader, you have to lead the team as well as strategic thinking, connecting the dots, seeing a broader view makes them to be a good leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, a lot of women that are in leadership, they have that wonderful ability to kind of speak their mind. So to not be worried about what's going to happen if they have an idea that nobody else shares, because those ideas and those things are what drive, again, that drives revenue. Though people having those outside of the box ideas and outside of the box strategies, that's what helps a company that's been stuck for years and years and years and just moving along in their revenue. You put a woman in leadership on that team and they're like, well, what about this? You guys aren't thinking about this. What about that? How about this?
Mm.
So all of those things are really what sets women up for leadership well.
Yeah, and coming back to chemist industry, because we want to learn more, understand more about the industry. Like, we see a lot of labs technicians and other junior roles, but what do you think? What's your opinion? Like, they're not moving really into a higher level, especially into sales. What do you think about it?
Many times, women, people of color, you are taught to show up to work, do a good job, keep your head down, and you will get a promotion. That is a misnomer, because our colleagues are not doing that. Most men advocate for themselves. Most men, if they complete a project, and it can be just their job, but they're going to tell their boss. They're going to ensure that someone knows that they did this thing, and this thing that they did is absolutely amazing and they are very excited about it, right? And
Mm.
so what women have to do is we have to advocate for ourselves. A great bit of advice that I tell every single person that I know wants to move up within their organization, some people are okay doing what they're doing, is never do anything in a vacuum. Never just go to your boss and say, hey, I did these 5 things and I'm so excited and this can help the company, blah, 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 blah. Because what your boss is going to do is they're going to take that and make that their idea. And you don't get credit for it. Always do everything you're right. Like, that is the most important thing that you can do. Right, right, right. Yes, go tell your boss verbally. Say, these are the things that I've accomplished. These are the things I'm so excited about having done. However, I'll shoot you an email just so I can we can recap our meeting, right? And so you send the email, and then you say, items. This is what I'm going to accomplish in the next month, in the next 3 months. And you keep that trail going. So when your boss does show up to a meeting, say, yeah, I have this great idea. You can be like, thanks, Frank. Thanks so much for letting everybody know about my great idea. I'm so glad that you liked it. And what can they do at that, right? Yeah, thank you so much, Wesleyne. Yes, you did an amazing job. So it's that self-promotion that we think that, oh, I'm just boasting and I'm just being, too much. No, you're advocating for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't advocate for yourself, no one else will.
No one else. That's a great piece of advice. It's like nobody bothers whether what you do behind the scene, but how you show it up, what you did, that matters a lot.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't get anything from being quiet and mousy and just doing the work. So if you just are sitting at that bench top and just doing the work as a chemist, as a technician in the lab, and you're not promoting yourself, you better believe your boss is not promoting you. You better believe your colleagues are promoting themselves. And so when your colleague gets that promotion and you're like, oh my gosh, I am so much better than him. Oh my gosh, I'm doing all of his work. Why did he get promoted? It's because you didn't do that work behind the scenes. You didn't rally, you didn't get that committee. Before the job was even posted, your colleague knew they had the job because they had been working on it for 6 months. They knew that. So we have to start not just thinking about what we're doing, what's right in front of us, but the next step and the step after that and how we can keep growing.
Yeah, yeah. And want to know your challenges, what you face being a woman in color. Maybe some examples audience would like to know. I know that going to create a confidence in them, right?
One a story that I love to share was this there was this it was a show, just like a trade show. When I was working, I was actually at this point I was a sales manager. And I went to the show. It was on a Sunday. I don't like working on the weekends. You know, I have this very big work life balance. I have boundaries. I have two sons. I really value my weekends. But it was a show that a lot of my ideal clients were going to be at. So I made the sacrifice to go. Went, I set up the booth, didn't have any salespeople with me. It was just me. The room was all men, right? Just I was the only woman in literally in this room. There were probably about 100 people or so. And I was at the table, you know, drinking water, eating a snack, and there was a group of men. They were around and talking. And there was a professor from a very prominent university that was at the table, and he was telling a story. And in that story, he said, he looked at me directly and he said, yeah, back in those days, you would not have been allowed on campus. I don't know if it's because you're a woman or if it's because you're black, but you wouldn't have been allowed there. And I was like, what? Did he actually just say that? And all of the people around, they just kind of looked at me and they looked at him. No one stood up for me. Nobody advocated for me.
Oh,
So at that point, I was like, I'm so done with this. I'm going back home and I don't even know if I'm coming back tomorrow. So I went home and I was crying and I mean, because that hurt. I was like, I've been a top salesperson. I've generated many multi-million dollars. I've done all these things. But at the end of the day, I am still just a black woman. And so no matter all the things I've done, I am still just a black woman, right? That's what people see me as. And so the next day I went back and I confronted the professor. And I said, sir, the comment that you made yesterday was 100% inappropriate. It was absolutely inappropriate. And you should be ashamed of yourself because you have students that look like me. And by you saying that out loud, that tells me that you have bias to those students that you are teaching, and they don't have a fair chance to be just as successful as their colleagues. So you should be ashamed of yourself. And he was just fumbling and bumbling, and like he's like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know I offended you." But I took my power back. I did not allow someone who said something so painful to allow me to not show up as myself. And I didn't just allow him to take that pass and be like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. So that moment when I was like, I am still just a black woman, that was a hard moment because I'm up here, I'm in present, I'm doing all the things that everybody else is doing. But at the end of the day, the way that I look, I can't change that. The person that I am, I can't change that.
you know, the other day we were talking, why the world focusing only a black woman, not a black man?
Yes, yes. You know, this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I feel that a lot of companies or the world focus on black women because they can check two boxes at once. You're a woman and you're black, right? But it's not that easy out there for black men either, right? Like they don't have a lot of support. They are, a lot of times in the US, they're thought of as aggressive. They're thought of, because a lot of times they're very tall or they're very big in stature, that we're scared of you, we're afraid of you, you can't speak up for yourself. So it's hard, right? But again, they focus on Black women because they can check two boxes at once. And so they're like, if I can check two boxes, then why don't I check the two boxes?
But what do you think the root cause of, men treating black women like this? Is it a culture, or is it the way they brought up? What do you think?
So, this is you getting me deep today, and I have no problem answering any questions. And so, when you're in corporate America, men, period, it doesn't matter if they're Indian men, doesn't matter if they're Asian men, Black men, it doesn't matter who they are. They have an allegiance because they're a man. And so the color of your skin, who you are, where you came from, that can be overlooked. You're still a man, right? And so what happens in corporations is men in general, they become cultured this way. They see their colleagues treating women a certain way and they think, well, I want to be like him. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to focus on treating the women however I want to. I don't care if I'm married to a Black woman or an Asian woman or an Indian woman. At work, I'm doing this thing. And what happens is women get disenfranchised and they feel that they can't show up. They feel like they have no allies. They feel like they're just fighting this fight alone, that they're in quicksand. And it's because that's how men feel. I was recently chatting with this consulting firm that they want me to do some business with them. Somebody referred me in. So I was talking to a guy. He was a person of color. He was a Black guy. And at the end of the conversation, he was like, yeah, I don't think you can work with us because we're competitors. And we're doing the same thing. And essentially he was like, I can be the only one here that's doing all this great stuff and you're not welcome. But then I talked to his colleague who was a woman and she was like, I can't believe he told you that. We have so much that we can do working together. I just can't believe that he would actually tell you that. So sometimes as strong women, we come across and we threaten men. And so they don't want us around, right? And sometimes they feel like, well, I can't tame that person, or I don't know what's going to happen. But we, as men and as women, because women sometimes take on those same type of behaviors, again, because we've been cultured to do this. We've been cultured to say there can only be one woman here. There can only be one of me. You have to become an ally. You have to be the voice for the voiceless. You have to be the seat at the table when they don't have a seat at the table. Because the only way that we're going to change the way that women are perceived in corporations, in sales, in technical roles, is to have full equity. And equity means that every person has a voice at the table and they can speak freely and not fear any repercussions.
Yeah, I totally got it. Recently I discovered my father, when I born, first 3 days he didn't see my face. So,
Mm.
because I'm a girl baby.
Mm.
I think that should start from the beginning, the way they brought up, the way they have the mindset. Girl means, they won't take care of the family. That kind of mindset. I don't know in US, but in India, girl means they go away after marriage, they go away with the in laws family and they don't take care of the parents. Son means he'll be with them and he'll take care of the family. That kind of a mindset still few have. So still they prefer boy baby. Boy baby given more importance here.
Mm. Yeah, here I don't think that it's as bad in the early childhood. I think it starts becoming bad once children go to school and teachers will give preference to one gender versus the other in terms of, like I mentioned, girls like, okay, you don't want to color. I mean, you want to color, you don't want to do this extra math. Okay, that's fine. My youngest son, he decided he wanted to be in the math club this year. He's in, and so I was picking him up this week, and there were probably only like 20% of the students that were in the math club that were girls. And so really, as a society, as educators, as parents, it is our job to ensure that we push our kids the same way, and every parent does. But then when they are out of our realm and they're at school, what are the teachers doing, right? What are the programs you're saying? If your son says, I want to go to coding camp, you'll let your son go to coding camp, but you'll tell your daughter she doesn't have to go, right? So
Mm.
really just changing the mindset around, yes,
Yeah.
we want our children to have their own identity and to be free and to think and do what we want them to do. But if we want to expose them to different things, exposing them to different things is making them try different things. Because like my oldest son, I picked him up from theater after school this week, right? Because he wanted to explore that. He goes to a school that is engineering focused, but he decided he wanted to do theater. So really allowing our kids to choose their own path while giving them a little direction as to what that path should be.
Yeah, I think that's very important, to live their own dreams, not our dreams to put on
Absolutely. I
them.
know.
So like I know you really manage your work life now, but just want to have an idea when you got married and you were in sales, having a small baby, like how you could manage.
I had my youngest son. I actually got pregnant with my youngest son 1 month into a new job. Like, who does that? I don't know how it is in India, but here it's kind of like taboo. Like,
Oh
oh, you
my
just
god.
start a job and
At
you're
least we
pregnant
have
already.
3 months, 3 to 6 months now, yeah.
So I literally found out I was pregnant a month after I started the job. And I was so, so, so very grateful to have an amazing leader. And she is a woman in sales. And so when I told her, I was like, I feel so ashamed to tell you this, but I'm pregnant. And she was like, okay. That's what happens. I want you to have a career here. I don't want you just to be here. And you're a woman of childbearing age. That's going to happen. So that helped reformulate the whole having a child in sales. Then I had to go to HR, right? Because I was a woman in sales and I was going to be taking time off after I had my child. I was the first woman in the sales to ever get pregnant at this company in the year 2014. They had no policies. There was nothing. And so essentially they said, well, you're going to be gone. You're going to be on short-term disability. So we're just not going to pay your commission for any orders that come in or anything that ships. Like you're just not, you'll get your short-term disability. But I was like, what? Excuse me? Are you telling me that so I should just do nothing until May when I go out to have my child? I should, because I'm not going to get paid for it if it comes in when I'm off. And I can remember sitting in the HR man in the VP HR's office and crying because again,
My
I'm
god.
emotional. I was pregnant this time. And I'm like, I just like, I mean, I can't choose to when to have a baby, not to have a baby. Like, I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? I was like, if somebody goes out on short-term disability, let's say they break their leg, they can say, I want to have my surgery December 15th and be off. Like, they can make that choice. Like, but can I really just say I'm gonna get pregnant this month and this time and I'm gonna have my baby then? And she was like, I'm sorry, that's just a policy. She was very cold-faced. And
My god.
so I was able to change the company policy because I was so adamant about it. And that policy is still in now. It doesn't matter if you're out having a child, you're taking time off. In the States, we have 3 months where your job is protected. You will still get your commission. You will get your bonuses that you have earned. And the manifestation of having a baby when I was in sales was I coined this whole term of pumping and driving. So I would be driving from customer appointments and I would have my pump on and I'm just going. And when I traveled, I flew my mom with me so that I could have the baby with me because I really wanted to nurse my son for the first full year, just like I did my other son. So I had to make sacrifices and I had to balance things. But I am very, very, very proud to say the year that my son was born in 2014, I was number 2 in sales in the company. And I tell
Wow.
everybody I would have been number 1, but somebody had a crazy December and like I was literally tracking as number 1. And from the time he was born in May until December, I did 0 overnights. So I was a field salesperson and I was able to manage it where I did so much before I went out that end of the year. So I experienced struggles being pregnant, having a child, but I still was able to overcome. And when I went on the stage and I got my award for exceeding quota, being number 2 in sales, my manager whispered in my ear, you proved everybody wrong."
Yeah, that's great. I still remember when my manager wants to have a backup plan for my maternity leave. He said you have
Mm.
to find somebody to transfer everything because you can't manage in maternity leave. But I said, you don't worry, I'll be able to manage. Even maternity leave, I'll be able to talk to customers, send emails, have Zoom calls. So you no need to worry. He did not have a confidence at that time, but after I come back from maternity leave, when I had a meeting with him, he was so happy. Even the quota was achieved, everything. So it's like we have to prove ourselves to make our manager to believe on us, right? We
I
have to take that
know.
effort.
It's and to me it's crazy because you have a young baby, and so it's this is still happening. It's
Yeah.
still happening where
Yes.
you have to fight. And as a woman in sales, this is one of the many reasons that women shy away from a sales career,
Very true.
because it's not easy. You have to travel, you have to be away from your children, you have to work long hours, but do what makes you feel good. Like when I get to go and I get to go, now I'm speaking on stages. Now I'm seeing people, all over the world. And that makes me feel amazing. That taps into the Wesleyne, right? And when I'm at home, I'm the mom, and that's okay. I can be the mom and I can be the Wesleyne, right? Like they're not mutually exclusive. And even within my organization, I tell everybody that works for me, you don't leave your personal life at home. Like if you have a sick child and you need to take time off, that's fine. If you need to reschedule a meeting because your child is throwing up in the toilet and you can't physically have a sick child and be on a Zoom call, that is okay. Like life happens, and don't compartmentalize, because when we compartmentalize, it causes us stress and it causes us anxiety, and that's when we start breaking down and we're like, I can't do this anymore. I just want a regular job that's 9 to 5, and you're so unfulfilled.
Yeah, I so agree. Many women are dropping out because as soon as they have a child, they think that they will not be able to manage that problem. Any career will have such problems, you know. But it's a mindset that only in sales, they can't manage that problem. This problem they make it, but everywhere, one or the other challenges will be there. They have to accept and manage it.
Absolutely. And I always blame the leaders. I blame the managers, because the managers are the ones that make women feel that they can't do both. They
Very
put
true.
so much unnecessary pressure on them. And when some women are intrinsically motivated, they're running their own race, right? And
Very true.
so if a manager is pressuring you, like you said, your boss is like, I don't think you can do it. So like your vote of confidence as a woman in sales, you're like, he doesn't believe in me, maybe I shouldn't believe in myself. And you could have easily went down a different path,
Very
but you
true.
took a different way, and you said, no, I'm going to do this. And so leaders have to take ownership for their part in developing women on their team and every individual on their team. It's not just about hitting them over the head with quota, telling them hit your KPIs, do this, do that. It's about, what do you, human being, what do you need, and how can I develop you so you can show up as your best self?
Wow. Yeah, I think the leaders have an important role, whether it is a men leader or a woman leader, to bring more women into sales,
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
especially when they are in such, maternity time. The more support is needed.
Absolutely. You need your boss to be, because even once I went back, because all of the things that happened when I had my son, my boss was like, as long as you send one email a day, I'm good. I know that you're doing what you need to do. Like, I don't want this to be so stressful for you that you feel like
Wow.
you have to do this, you have to travel overnight. She was 100% supportive, and she Again, when I mentioned earlier, being the voice at the table when there is no voice at the table for you, being an ally, speaking for the person who doesn't have the words to speak, right? She was the one who went to back and she literally said, best hire I have ever made in my career. We do not need to lose her. We need to figure out how to keep her. And if we do not do these things, she will leave. And so she went to bat and she said, this is what we have to do. And as leaders, that is what we have to do. We have to fight for our people. We don't just roll over and say, yeah, so, yeah, this is what they told me to do. So I'm going to have to tell that to you. Your job is to advocate for your people. Advocate for your people and protect them from the bureaucracy that you have to deal with as a leader. Don't always complain and tell them this and this and that. Advocate for them.
But do you think it's because of saleswoman leader she could understood you better or no?
You know, I will say the best boss I have ever had was a woman, and the worst boss I have ever had was a woman. So that is what I will say.
Okay. I got it.
So I will
Okay,
not
I
say
got
that
it.
it is because she was a woman. I think it's
Okay,
because
so yeah.
I would say it is because she had the empathy to understand. I have had male bosses that have also had empathy, and they also were invested in me personally. And so they developed me, they advocated for me, right? They didn't just see me as a person who they could just run over or a person who was just there to bring the money or to lead a team. And so I would say the thing that makes a good sales leader, a good sales manager, is the empathy to understand, even if you haven't gone through it. Because she never had kids. She was a lot older than me, but she never had children. But
Okay.
she had the empathy to understand. And so having the
Mm,
empathy to understand and advocate for your people, that I would say is the best. That's what makes a good leader.
got it. Got it. Got it. So your other worst woman leader had the children or not?
Oh man, no, she didn't have kids either. She was horrible.
Okay.
She's horrible.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, and so again, when we flip that conversation on the head, what made her horrible? What made her horrible was, this is what my boss said, and this is what's going to make me look good, and so this is what I need you to
Um,
do. I don't care about you. I don't care about what you need. If my boss gets mad at me, I'm going to get mad at you. It doesn't matter what you've done well. It doesn't matter how hard you're working. I feel stressed. You feel stressed. You didn't check 25 boxes. So I'm not going to give you your full bonus. I'm not going to give you your full commission. You're not eligible for a raise. You're not eligible for a promotion because you didn't check all the boxes. And so again, it's that linear thinking and only thinking about yourself, not thinking about the people that you're impacting.
that's a great piece of advice as a leader. You have to think as a people, like what is going on in them and how to advocate them. I think that's more important instead of just following what your boss says and just pushing.
Yes. Yes, because people leave managers, they don't leave companies. So, whenever you have turnover, it is your fault. Yes, I will say it is your fault. I would say about 85% of the time, it's your fault. That other 15% of the time, there's something outside of you that you can do, because even the very best boss that I had, I eventually moved on, right? And the moving on was within my organization. I was kind of at the ceiling. I couldn't take a step further. I couldn't become the leader, the manager that I wanted to be, and so I had to find somewhere else. But when I put my notice in, when I left, she was like, I told you before, and I will tell you again and forever, you are the best person I've ever hired in my 25 years of being in sales, and
Super.
20, I think she was in management for 15 years. You are the best person I ever hired, and I am happy for you, and I am proud of you. And so really remember that. People leave managers, they don't leave companies. So when you have turnover, don't blame it on the economy. Don't blame it on our product offering. Don't blame it on our support. Blame it on yourself. Like, what can I do to be a better leader? How can I actually impact the person that I'm working with? How can I change their life so that they then can move through and move forward?
Okay, so that's great. So now coming into your story, the transition time from, from your job to transform sales, how it happened.
Oh, so I have two stories. Do you want the real story or do you want the
The
edited
real
version?
story.
The real story. Okay. So the real story is I was an international sales manager an entire month and I was all over the world. I was in LA, I was in Atlanta, I was in New York, I was in Norway, I was in Paris, I was in London in
Wow.
1 month. Literally in 1 month. I did all of that traveling in 1 month. After that 1 month of travel, we had a board meeting. And so I'm sitting in the board meeting, the only woman, only person of color. Just, that was a norm for me at that time. And I presented what my team, what the organization, what the sales organization had done for the year. And I sat down and what we were planning on doing the next year. I sat down and they said, "That's it? That's all you guys have done? Doesn't like what else?" Well, like we wanted to see more. And so at that moment, I said, "I'm done with this." I'm like, I am absolutely done with this. I am done giving 150% for organizations, because at that point it wasn't just one company, it was many organizations that I had been through, and no matter how hard I worked and no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. So I made a decision right there in that meeting that I am so done with this. And within 2 weeks, I formed my business. I still worked. I still had my whole job, but I was like, I'm only giving you guys 100%. And that extra 50 or 60% that I've been giving you, I'm investing that in me. And so that's what I did. And that's how I started my business. And my big realization and my epiphany was I was really, really good at developing people. I was really good at getting everybody on my team to hit quota every single month. That wasn't always the case. When I first started as a sales manager, like in the first 6 months, I lost like half my team. They're like, "Wesleyne, you're like a tyrant. Like, what is wrong with you?" It was bad. It was really bad. And so I had to do that, taking a step back and put the onus on myself. And so I really figured out how to do that. And so that's what we do at Transform Sales. We focused on leadership centric sales training, consulting, and coaching. So everything that we do, leadership has to be invested, involved, and willing to be developed, or we won't work with you and we won't work with your team. So we never go in and just do sales training for a team and run away. We have to make sure that if we're doing sales training, the sales manager is in the training. Then when we work on our ongoing coaching, the sales manager gets coached by themselves as well as with their team. And that is the way that we drive change. That's the way that we are able to say that when we develop sales managers, we get a 10x, the company, gets a 10x return on your investment. And when we only focus on salespeople, it's literally like a 0.5x ROI. So that's my journey and that's what we do.
That's a great concept, like not only training either to sales managers alone or nor sales team alone. It's like together, because I think together, if they learn the skills, they grow, then the company will grow into 10x.
Exactly. And the thing is, the manager has to hold the team accountable. How can you hold the team accountable if you aren't learning the same thing at the same time that they're learning it? Right. So, and you also get so much credit from your team when you sit there and you're paying attention and you are in it and you're asking questions and you are vulnerable enough to say, "I don't know everything. I want to learn. I am here to learn just like you." And I literally, when we go in to do a training, I'm like, everybody in this room is a student. I am the teacher today. There are no other teachers except for
Mhm.
Wesleyne. And so I need everybody to be in learning mode and I need everybody to fully participate. And most of the time I'm training a room of men, right? There might be 10 or 20% women in there. And I get a lot of pushback because they're like, "You don't know anything. Like, you don't know this. You don't know that." And I'm like, guess what? I've lived this life. I've worn a hard hat and steel toe boots walking in plants. I have done many, many overnights. I have flown the world. I have been on December 31st, like checking, refreshing my email. Is the last PO coming in? Is the last PO coming in? I know what you're experiencing. And so I'm here to help you. And so literally, we break down all of those barriers and we focus on behaviors to drive change. So we don't teach how to make cold calls. we teach what's holding you back from cold calling. Like what is the thing within you that is holding you back from doing what you need to do to be successful.
Okay. So the question is like your best skills, why what is that managers to really learn to lead a team to grow to the next level, a leadership? Like what is the three piece of skills you say from transform sales? Like this is what a good leader, good manager should have.
Okay, I'll say them. Sales managers sell. Sorry, salespeople sell. Sales managers manage. That's the first one. Get out of the weeds and get into the car with your salesperson. And the third one is everyone is not a mini me. So now let's go through each of them. The first thing is, as a sales manager, you should not be closing business at all. You should never be closing any business at all for any, I don't care how big the client is. I don't care if they're a $10 billion a year client to you. You do not close business. Your job is to coach and develop your people to actually close the business. That's the key. The second one is, when I say get out of the weeds, stop looking in the CRM, stop beating them over the head with these ridiculous KPIs, and go on sales calls with them. Go with them, give them the coaching in the moment. Show them how to actually close the deals. And as a sales manager, you should never, ever, ever go in a meeting alone. I don't care if it's an internal meeting or an external meeting. You should always have somebody with you so they are learning the how, literally the how to do things. The only time you don't take another person on your team with you is if you're having a HR issue with another employee. But if you're going to meet with finance and talking about new payment terms or bad customers, take a senior person on your team with you so they understand how to do that. Why? Because you need to be thinking about working yourself out of a job. Like when you have nothing to do, that's good. When my clients say, Wesleyne, like my plate is so clear, like I don't even know what to do with all this free time I have now. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, that's fantastic. Now it's time to hire some new salespeople and train them up. That is what your job is. It is to hire, train, develop. And the last one is, everybody is not a mini me. You were amazing. You did great things as a salesperson, but stop trying to force everybody to be just like you. Just because you went golfing and took this person here and took that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. The way that you sold produced results, but that's not the only way to sell. It's not the only way to do things. So stop putting everybody into your little teeny tiny box. And the last thing is, everyone needs an individualized coaching plan. So all of those things I talked about should roll into the individualized coaching plan that you have for every person on your team.
Wow. I really liked it. The closing you should not do on your own because it's a mindset. I also see, like, they see that if I close, only that will happen. The deal will close. If I send my team, that won't happen. So they don't have confidence on their team. By doing this, definitely even the team will have, confident. Okay, my boss has given me authority to close the deal, so I should be able to close the deal.
Absolutely. And the thing is that pressure, right? It's the end of the quarter, it's the end of the month, it's the end of the year. And you're like, we have to close this to hit our quota, to hit our number. And as a leader, you have to be okay with knowing that you may not win the deal. And knowing that you may not win the deal, that means that that salesperson will never lose that way again. It will be a hard lesson for them to learn, but your job is to not always swoop in and rescue. It's just like when you're teaching your kids to walk or to ride a bike. You kind of let them stumble a little bit. You let them fall. And what they do, they pick themselves back up. And so, and it does not help the confidence or the morale of the team if the sales manager is closing all the big deals and you're giving them crumbs. Like, who wants that? I don't want crumbs. I want the cake. Like, give me cake. Don't give me crumbs.
I got it. Okay, so we are almost in the end of this show. So I usually ask my guest, like, I believe in, the daily habits related to sales, related to the personal transformation, something like you must be following, which you feel others can follow. What is that to share with us? the daily habits?
So, daily habits for me is I have a block of time on my calendar every day from 8:30 to 9, and I call it think big time. And so I do not have any meetings. If my kids are already gone to school, I am sitting at my desk and I am thinking about my business. I am thinking about my people. I am literally thinking about the things that I need to do to help move us from point A to point B. So a good daily habit is setting aside time where you can think big. Have a notebook, have your iPad, have your computer, and just write random thoughts. Check the internet, look for things, but don't be physically working in the business, right? That so many leaders don't even think about. And even as an individual contributor, it's important for you to do this too. It's like your territory, your book of business, that is your own small business. What are you going to do to grow? That's the first thing. And then I think the second thing that I do is I talk to myself just like I talk to my own best friend. And so we are so hard on ourselves. We say really, really not nice things. And so on those days where you are down, you are stressed, and you're like, oh my God, why did you do that? That's no good. You're not this, you're not that. You didn't do this. I'm like, I literally have to say, okay, what would this person say to me? She would say, Wesleyne, you are amazing. You have broke so many ceilings. Yes, you may have lost that deal, but what about the 5 you won this week? Stop being so hard on yourself. And I say that out loud. I don't say that in my head because I need to hear my voice say it. So talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend so that the positive things, the positive affirmations, you will start hearing them and believing them.
Wow. Wow, that's nice habits. And what is your secret of success?
My secret to success, I would say that I am successful because I don't depend only on myself. I am a person I am very introspective and I understand that I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not good at everything. And so I am very much open to being vulnerable and reaching out to my network, whether it's business contacts or friends or even my team. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Can you please help me? Like I need some help. And so asking for help has been one of the best keys to my success. And I ask for help, and my way to pay it forward is showing somebody else how to do something that way. So a lot of times you will hear consultants or coaches or trainers, and they're like, I don't give free advice. I don't talk to anybody for free. That is not my motto. Right? I'm not going to talk to everyone for free. I'm not going to share all the things to everyone. But when I have a woman in sales who says, I am in this horrible, toxic situation and I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm like, here's my calendar link. Let's chat for 15 minutes. I actually had a man reach out to me and he was like, all the things that you talk about all the time on LinkedIn, I am experiencing on a daily basis. My boss is a tyrant. Like, I just feel like I am so broken. And I was like, let's chat. So receiving help and giving help really has allowed me to be in a place where I feel I am financially secure. I am in a place where I don't feel like I don't have to get the business, right? Yes, I have bills to pay. Yes, I want to do things, but I'm not so stressed out because I know what is meant for me is for me.
Wow. What is meant for me, it's meant for you.
Absolutely.
Great advice. Okay. Yeah, so we have done, and it was so much, so
I
much
know.
to discuss, so much to learn. Thanks a lot, Wesleyan. Nice to have you
Thank you so
here
much
today.
for having me. This has been an amazing time. I had a great time chatting with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.